The great thing about the new drone technology, and especially with the image stabilization systems that they're able to put on these drones, is drones can go places helicopters cannot go. If you're in a helicopter and you're over an urban area, you're never supposed to get below 500 feet. Some cell towers or some TV towers are 1,000 feet high, so you really have to be careful, and a lot of accidents have happened. Also, helicopters are tremendously expensive to maintain and tremendously expensive to fly. You can easily cost you $2,000 or $3,000 an hour to go up in a chopper.
When drones first emerged covering sports, I was excited. The first I heard of it was when I read that NASCAR was going to use it, and I thought, boy, that's interesting. I guess my first thought was, be really interesting if the drone falls from the sky and lands on a car. But I also thought it made sense that they would do it in NASCAR, because if the drone did fall from the sky and lands on a car, it could potentially cause a wreck, I guess, but probably not. That thing's just going to go flying off just like it would if, you know, a hot dog came flying out of the stands. It's not really going to affect the car, and nobody's going to get hurt.
I think the use of drone footage, if used properly and adding another dimension or a view or angle that no one is comfortable seeing or used to seeing, I think it could be, kind of the next wave of technology at sporting events.
I think that using a drone to go kind of from a low to high angle is an interesting idea. It's not something you normally see, so that is a way to, utilize this new technology to bring new perspectives to the broadcast rather than just replacing what we already have.
NASCAR or a baseball game, if you get to fly low through the cars, over a dugout, I think that'd be great. And I think, up high, it could give you a nice visual set of scene at a stadium, at a course, golf course. So it just kind of gives you that nice beauty shot when it's up high. I think when it's down low, it gets a little more personal, and you can see some faces and action, and that's always good too. So if you can fit it within the regulations to get it closer, I think it'd be great closer.
I do think drones have a place. Right now, I do believe that there are still, just a handful of unknown factors with drones that make me skeptical or leery of allowing drones to operate in the space of the actual contest. Because you have, one of the things that we always are very sensitive to when it comes to sporting events is essentially what I would call fair play, meaning any of the, playing area or the playing surfaces, in short, the playing field, to me, there are a lot of restrictions that need to live around those, because at that point you could interrupt the competition. And anything that proves to disrupt the actual competitiveness of the game, needs to be considered very carefully.
I think drones aren't the go-to source yet because of the safety issue. That really can be the only thing that I can see that's holding the networks and the sports organizations from using them more.
And people were crashing them into, somebody crashed one into the new AT&T Stadium at where the Dallas Cowboys play. The guy crashed it into the roof there. There have been drones that have been close to being hit by commercial airliners. So there was a real problem with that. So the FAA started a certification system, and now you have to be certified to fly a drone. And there's just places you can't fly anything. Like you can't fly in the flight path of commercial jets. There's other helicopters that are in the air. You don't have communications with air traffic control to know what other aircraft are in the area. So collisions are not impossible to happen. Now, as far as sports goes, there was one drone that crashed right behind a downhill ski racer last year that missed him about this far. It was a big drone too. If it had hit him, it could have caused serious damage.
I think early on the concern about drones was a security issue. Who was supplying the drone, where was it flying, and so if you had a specific use, especially to get high-angle camera shots, and that was a part of the broadcast production, I think they could be very well received. Multiple drones over any stadium is going to really create a risk manager's nightmare. So you'd have to really be, I think, focused on the fact that if it was multiple drones, you'd have to know exactly what they were doing, where they were going to be in space, and there'd have to be an awful lot of controls. But yes, in essence, I think they could be very valuable.
A lot of the drones now don't have the battery life that can stay in the air for a 3-hour football game. So that's another piece of the technology that's going to have to improve before they can be fully utilized.
people aren't using drone footage exclusively for aerial shots right now just because it hasn't been around very long. It's not common practice. I think people have to get more familiar with the technology of how it works and how it transmits. Drones we've just started using and just trying to figure out how to get the best technology, how it gets back, how the signal looks, how the video looks, all that. So I think there's plenty of room for growth in that industry.
Getting approval to fly at a sporting event, particularly a professional sporting event, or even a collegiate sporting event, there are many, many levels of approvals that have to be gone through.
Evolution. This is the future. Evolution.
You have to weigh it, right? What are the benefits compared to the risks involved? And because drones are so new, I think they're still not really sure that the benefits are going to outweigh the risks involved. The more comfortable they get with them, the safer they'll be. I think certainly with the other technologies, while there have been a few incidents, it hasn't gotten to the point where it obviously was never at a point where they were concerned that the safety outweighed the advantage of getting these technologies involved in covering the events.
I think with a drone, you're manning it from a remote control down on the ground. And I do think they fly closer to a stadium, arena, whatever, than a helicopter blimp would. So I just think people worry about if you lose control via the remote control, like what's that look like, or where's it go, or where's it crash into. I have heard some people they'll tether the drones. So if it does lose control, it can't go too far, it'll fall where it falls because it's tethered on a rope. So I've heard that, and, maybe that's a possible solution.
What I think is appealing to creative people is the fact that is anytime that there is a shot that you can get that nothing else can, and so that's what I think makes the drone appealing, but it's what makes the drone such a risk at the same time. So it's both it's an appealing, but it's also a risk, and that's what people I think generally have instituted safeguards around it for, or that we're not in a place where we're putting others at risk. And so that's, I think, again, that's sort of the double-edged sword of the drone, and figuring out where that happy medium is. And it's not in an easy place.
Cable cameras, helicopters, blimps, any other kind of aerial thing has proven to be, effective and safe and, able to work well, where drones are still a bit of an unknown. Someone's going to have to kind of take that step to try to implement it.
I think we've seen the same sort of application with the cabling system. And so, if you could do the same thing but not have to have the cables running everywhere, I think that could be a real positive. Those shots that come in from behind an offense as they're setting the line and then can swoop above the play as it materializes, I think those are really things that any fan watching enjoys and considers a bonus to the production. So I think those are again, applications that could be very, very popular.
So I just can't see why you wouldn't use a drone instead of a helicopter. Now I know the Channel 8 and some of the stations here in Dallas still use them for traffic. And what they've done there, and there's been a lot of traffic, helicopters crash and kill people over the years. I don't know the exact statistics, but it's happened in LA, it's happened in other places. So yeah, I think drones are absolutely the way of the future in our industry, without a doubt. As they become more and more sophisticated and the image stabilization technology becomes more and more sophisticated, it gives more photographers and more videographers and more directors a great tool that's not just tremendously expensive. You can buy a drone for under $500, it'll do almost anything. But man, that big, wide, beautiful shot overhead is something everybody always likes to see. Everybody likes to see the wide shot, let's set the scene with the whole wide shot. I think that's a real advantage to using drone. So drones are definitely changing the landscape as far as where video cameras are boldly going where no video camera has ever gone before.
So it's exciting. I think it's a very exciting prospect, and I think there's no question that they will be used. It's just going to be interesting to find out how they're going to be used.
Hopefully that drone footage will enhance the viewer's experience. I mean, they're never going to replace hard cameras. You know, they've been trying to get rid of us old camera guys for years in sports on long lenses, but you can't autofocus a 100 by lens fast enough to do it. You can't pan one fast enough to do it. So us old camera guys are still going to be around for a long time. But using the drones in a creative way and not overdo it, I think you can really, really enhance the viewer's experience, not replace it.
There are some technological advances that come and go that you think are going to be big and don't wind up panning out. I don't think that's what's going to happen with drones. I think we're going to see drones being used more.
It's cool, like if it starts at somebody's face or down at a surface and goes up, again, very cool, or at the exterior of a building and flies up, and then you see this huge dramatic shot of a stadium. Like I think all that's cool, right? And again, that's something a helicopter or a blimp can't do. They can't drop down really low on the field. And the cable cam can drop down lower to the field, but then it can only hit a certain height, right? So I think there are advantages with a drone that you can get really low and then you can go extremely high also. So, you know, you can go above the wires of a cable cam, and you can go lower than a helicopter could give you. So it gives you the best of both worlds, which I think can be cool and dynamic.
Be able to get that aerial perspective, which is a wide shot, like that is where the drone is the most useful, because you can't get that high otherwise. You can't, you know, there's spaces. That's what makes the drone so appealing, similar to a sky camera or anything else, is you're able to get that Z space, that vertical up and down space, out around and over a potential field of play, or even off the side of field of play, that you just can't get with a traditional camera or the traditional camera placements.